Hi guys, so last month I made a lot of builds using sprues, and to make all the builds possible I cast a lot of parts using the ooey gooey sprue stuff. But obviously to do that you need to make some moulds, and as you can see here I've got a variety of moulds. These have all been made differently with different sort of materials, but obviously the end result is the same. Yeah, sometimes they come out really good, sometimes not so good. But the thing there is you just sort of remake them over and over again until you get ones that are absolutely perfect. So I thought in this video I would show how I made all these moulds. So some of these moulds are Warhammer parts, and some of them are bits and pieces that I've had run around the house. So almost like scratch building really. But yeah, so you can see there are quite a variety of things here, and say some come out better than others. But generally for the kind of builds I do, which is obviously a lot of orcish stuff or rusty stuff, yeah, they all come out really well. So let's dive in, and the first one I'm going to show you how I made are these corrugated containers. Obviously you say I've gone to town on these, making them a bit of a rusty old bucket, but yeah, so these side panels as you can see are sort of like corrugated looking, and to make those basically I took some corrugated card. Nice and simple, but obviously it gives the effect that I need. So just a case of duplicating this effect by making a mould and then, yeah, casting it with the ooey gooey sprue stuff. So the moulds can be made in a variety of ways, but generally I kind of just use whatever I've got lying to hand to sort of build up the base and the sides. Basically you just want like an airtight sort of area, or watertight kind of area, that you can pour the silicone into. As you can see, I'm using this bit of board, which you will actually see in another video, where it gets turned into Crazy Dave's workshop. So yes, even though I'm using the board for this, it will then get used for something sort of afterwards. So yes, I'm using this this sort of foam board stuff to make these surroundings. Again, just because I've got it lying around and it's pretty cheap, and yeah, I've got quite a lot of it. So a bit of glue. Obviously it's all been cut up, so it should all fit nicely round. I try and do a gap of around about 10mm at least, sort of around anything that I'm going to make a mould of. That's obviously to the sides and the depth as well. I probably made this one deeper than it probably needed to be, because I am sort of only creating a small cast, because obviously the corrugated card is very thin. But yeah, sometimes I like to make sure that what I make is definitely fit for purpose, and it can be used again and again and again basically. And as you can see, obviously I don't use this stuff that often, and the glue's actually sort of melted it. Bit of a shame, but that doesn't really matter, we can soon rectify that. Some good old plasticine, and we'll just sort of put that in all the gaps. Yeah, so I'm going to go around everything, because obviously say the glue does seem to have melted the styrene foam or whatever it's called a little bit. But yeah, so guys, obviously whenever I do make stuff, anything that does go wrong I kind of leave in, just because obviously it helps me, because I do rewatch my videos, but it'll also help you to sort of see if this is something new you're using, what kind of happens. And as I say, obviously this glue has sort of dissolved it. I purposely, because normally when I'm making these kind of moulds I use a hot glue gun, just because I then know that it will be nice and secure and sort of say watertight. But I kind of thought that the hot glue gun would definitely melt this stuff, but obviously so does normal glue. So yes, I'm also going to cast some wheels. As I say, if you'd seen some of my previous videos last month, basically they were all sprue built. Yeah, some of them had wheels. I think these were actually used for the pod racer. So yeah, if you haven't seen that video, go and check that out. I made a pod racer for Star Wars Day, and I used these tyres to actually make the engine, and they came out pretty cool. So just a case of filling in the inside of these, because obviously, well, I only really need to cast the outside is what I really want. So I just love the look, the texture, and the design really that's going on these wheels. And yeah, I thought they'd be pretty cool. So yeah, just filling in the base, the centre bits with some good old kitchen foil. Again, this is something that I've got loads of. It's nice and cheap, and it's just a great thing for packing stuff out. So yeah, once that's done, we can then make a mould of those in the same way as before. And again, I've used the plasticine to fill in the gaps, just to make sure nothing leaks out. I'm using a 2-part liquid silicone, and I like to go for ones that are mixed on a ratio of 1:1, just because it makes things nice and simple. I kind of run out of my usual little plastic cups that I use, so I've used an old yogurt pot. Again, it is just a case of really trying to use whatever you've got lying around the house. Generally I do try and go out and buy sort of stuff that I need, but obviously sometimes it does run out, and yeah, let's just use whatever we've got lying around. So again, I like this one that I've got because there are different colours. I have used some before where they've both been clear, which is a bit of a pain when you come to mix them. So as you can see in this one, there's a white one and a dark blue, and when you mix them together, it becomes a nice sort of light blue. So you know when it's fully mixed because it is sort of a consistent colour. But when you get the clear ones, then yeah, they are tricky. So when pouring this in, I like to try and pour from a real nice height, get a thin stream, as this helps reduce the air bubbles that get sort of trapped and caught in the mould. But so this stuff I'm using, it's a relatively cheap one, but it is quite a good one because I've never really had any problems with air bubbles, which is pretty cool. Especially as I don't have like an air vacuum chamber or anything to sort of suck out the bubbles. So yeah, this one works really well. So filling it nicely to the top, and then it's a case of letting it dry. I think this one was about an 8-hour curing time. And as you can see, I'm giving it a good old little tap. Obviously speed it up, it makes my fingers look like they're going nuts. And again, this just helps any air bubbles that are trapped down the bottom sort of like float to the top and then sort of release out into the air. So yeah, pouring in again on the corrugated card one as well. As I say, this one I really made a lot thicker and deeper than I really needed to. But the good thing is I actually use it to make quite a lot of the corrugated card panels. So yeah, so it's well worth making the mix nice and thick, just because it does sort of last a nice long time. I just wanted to say a big thank you to all my patrons for helping support the channel, as it really does mean so much to me because it helps me buy more and more of the materials needed to make things. So yeah, cheers guys, thanks a lot for that. If you do want to help out and see sort of behind the scenes stuff and work in progress pictures, there will be a link at the end of the video, as well as links down in the description on how you can become a patron. So yeah, cheers guys, thanks so much. So obviously I've left the mould now for a good 8 hours, and now it's just a case of taking it out, and yeah, it's come out really well. Obviously I need to remove the bits of plasticine that's sort of like here and there, but that's fine. But the actual moulds themselves, yeah, nice and secure, nice and solid, and yeah, they've got lots of definition and detail in them of obviously the parts and pieces that I've just cast. So yeah, they are great, and I'll be able to use those to also make loads and loads of parts. So now I've got some moulds, it's now time to cast them using the sprues. As you can see, these are all like the centre parts of the sprues. Kind of generally take the outer edge ones and use them obviously because they're nice and long length for sprues. So yeah, so all these inner bits, I basically trim them up or cut them up into lovely little nibbly knobbly bits. Generally the size of these, obviously the smaller you make them, the quicker they'll dissolve, obviously. But as I generally leave them in the jar of acetone overnight, I basically cut them up into sizes that sort of fit into the top of the jar, basically. So I fill the jar right to the top, yeah, and then I leave it somewhere for, say, normally 8 hours is the sort of the minimum time it really needs. But again, I leave it overnight just because it's nice and simple. And then yeah, the next day I can get my moulds, because these are obviously lovely and come out really well. They've sort of cleaned them up now, so I've got all the plasticine bits. And yeah, it just goes with getting the goo sprue out and into the moulds. So I've got a spoon that I obviously use just for Sprue Goo even. And yeah, just a case of like pushing it out. The easiest way to obviously make this, well, flatten it basically, get some greaseproof paper. And one I've got is textured, so that doesn't really matter. This is going to be like the back of the thing, but you can get smooth greaseproof paper. And then using the roller, I have got a normal roller, but I couldn't seem to find that, so I'm using my textured roller, but it's still inside its sort of protective tube. I then trimmed the paper. This is just basically to make it look nice and neat, because what I was eventually going to do was obviously make loads of these panels, but rather than sort of like wait sort of 8 hours for each one to sort of fully cure or whatever, yeah, I was basically going to sort of do one, take it out, and then make another one, take that out, but leave them on the greaseproof paper to dry. And then yeah, doing the same sort of thing with the tyres really, putting loads of the Sprue Goo in. I found it best to put sort of more in than you kind of need really, because this way then when you just sort of like flatten it out or roll it out even, it really will push all this Sprue Goo into all the nooks and crannies of whatever it is you're sort of casting basically. So yeah, using the greaseproof paper again over the top. You can either use your fingers just to sort of push it down, or use the roller to try and get it sort of like smoothened out basically. But yeah, so this sort of thing seemed to work pretty well. And again, you do that for all of them. So it generally, it can take a good 8 hours for the Sprue Goo to sort of like harden back up. Again, this really depends on how thick the stuff is, really. But yeah, so as you can see, obviously it peels off reasonably well. Again, this probably hasn't been left quite as long as I should. Sometimes I do get a little bit impatient, but more so it's because I want to make loads of copies. So rather than leaving one fully for sort of the 8 hours, I kind of get it out a bit earlier and then leave it on the side for it to sort of fully cure. So this one has sort of, it's almost there. And again, put it on the grease-proof sort of tray helps. So the other good thing is obviously, well, with these sort of things, when you first take them off, say because this isn't obviously fully cured, it is still flexible. So even though I'm using these to make sort of obviously straight panels for the container, I do actually use some of these to make some tubes. So yeah, getting these when they're sort of still nice and soft, wrap them around a pen or anything sort of cylindrical that you want to sort of make the shape of, and then let it cure, then means you then get a cylindrical sort of corrugated tubey sort of effect. But yeah, as I say, I made quite a few of these because the containers I made, each one used what was it, three panels. Yeah, it was the sides and the top. I didn't have the bottom on them because they didn't seem to need to have the bottom. So the great thing with these moulds is it doesn't seem to deteriorate in any way using the Sprue Goo. So obviously, even though these things contain acetone, the acetone doesn't seem to dissolve or sort of do any sort of effects to the silicone molds, which is pretty cool, because then you can sort of reuse them again and again and again, basically, as in the case of what I was doing. Again, some of these do sort of come out better than others, but I think a lot of that is my impatience to get them out, basically. But any little air pockets or air holes, or say basically it's the acetone that sort of builds up, and then once it evaporates, it leaves like the little gaps. But any of that doesn't seem to really affect the look of these things. Again, because these are kind of like containers that are going to be rust buckets. And the same with the tyres. Again, I kind of take these out probably earlier than I should. So these are still relatively soft. But overall, the fact that this is made from sprues, yeah, not too bad a job at all. Certainly usable, and yeah, you can make great things with it. Obviously, you couldn't really cast anything too sort of like fine detail, because I don't think that would come out at all. So the other thing that works really well are these brought silicone molds. Again, these are from Amazon. There are links down in the description. Obviously, you get two of these together, and it makes obviously a nice sort of sphere or ball, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, obviously just using it in the halves. Again, using the Sprue Goo, fill it up. And yeah, the results on this are really good. This I kind of used, well, I think this was used in the pod racer as well as the great unclean one that I made. Basically, I made loads of spheres that sort of made up his sort of centre body, and then I put more goo over the rest of it. But yeah, it's good to know that you can buy the silicone molds, and again, the Oyumaru Sprue stuff, or the acetone, doesn't seem to dissolve or deteriorate or affect these molds either. So yeah, so again, these come out really well. These seem to come out better than any of the others. I'm not sure it's because they are like the spheres or half spheres, but yeah, the things come out and they almost look like they've been polished at the top. They are super smooth. So yeah, really pleased with how these come out. Obviously the inside, again, doesn't really matter what the inside looks like because that's not going to be seen. So again, I like to try new things out, and I did try this many months ago, and that's that blue stuff, Oyumaru. When I last used it, I don't think I really sort of used it properly because I didn't get good results. So I thought I'd have another go at using it. And yeah, this stuff though, this isn't the cheapest of stuff to use, but obviously the good thing about this stuff is it's reusable. So you can sort of like, you basically just heat it up in hot water and then form it around whatever it is you want to cast. And then basically just leave it until it hardens up. But again, this stuff isn't too bad, but you can't again use this for anything sort of too detailed or too intricate, because I think you'll have problems getting this stuff off. So I'm kind of making like a two-part mould just to make it obviously easier for this stuff to come apart. So in that case, it's just a case of doing one half, leaving that for say about 10, 15, 20 minutes I suppose, until it fully hardens, and then make the other half. And then obviously, as you can see, I've got the two halves together with a bit of tape around them, and yeah, getting the Sprue Goo and popping that inside, and obviously making sure you push it around so it fills it up nicely. So yeah, so this stuff didn't work too bad. I was quite pleased with the results, and as I say, especially because you can just reuse this blue stuff again and again. And again, more importantly, the acetone doesn't seem to dissolve, evaporate, or disfigure, or do anything really to this this mould stuff. So yeah, so another great way of making a variety of casts. Especially if you just want to make like a one-off cast, this is pretty cool. But if you want to make sort of loads and loads of the same thing, then I kind of prefer to use the silicone mold. But there you go. Yeah, so Sprue Goo is great to obviously make all kinds of pieces, and can be used to cast, well, whatever sort of parts and pieces you need. So some of these parts are Warhammer parts, and some of these parts are just sort of, well, junk that would have been thrown away, but would obviously look good in some sort of scratch built something or other. So yeah, so this is how it was possible for me to make loads of videos last month, all using sprues, whether they were sprues as they were, just sort of cut up, glued together, or sprues melted in acetone to make Sprue Goo. But either way, it just shows the possibilities with sprues are pretty much endless. As long as you don't mind what it looks like, looking a little bit like it's been through the wars or set on fire, and then turn it all into rust buckets. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up, leave some comments down below, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.